Hello and welcome to Afterlife Topics. If you like this type of content, please consider subscribing to the channel or becoming a patron at patreon.com/Afterlife Topics. Everybody, welcome to Afterlife Topics and Metaphysics. Once again, this is your host, Cyrus, and on this video, I'm going to talk about what is life like on the astral plane. We think of this as a temporary world that we go into if we can successfully astral project, but we're doing this from the locus of awareness of an earthbound incarnated person on this planet. And what we're basically doing in astral projection is that we are visitors going to these other realms. And the most common other realm that we go into is this astral earth type environment that I would say is also synonymous with a afterlife, because what you of course will find there is there's many people populating this world who are deceased. It's the same place that people go to, near-death experiences when they report going through a tunnel. Sometimes they're in more luxurious worlds, but ultimately these are different facets of the same kind of place, the kind of human incarnation next level that people go into. So I think it's very relevant to ask the question about what is life actually like there, so we have a better understanding of where we're going and what's going to happen to us. So first of all, let me thank a couple of people in the forums, in the community, to help gather this information. Off the top of my head, there's Michael Time's work, lots of details about what the other side is like. Stafford Betty's work is also influential. People on the forum, a quick shout out to William Murray and some of the others who have very interesting ideas about what the astral plane is like, what it's like living there. But I want to mention that a lot of this information comes from me astral traveling and asking people. So I've interviewed at this point probably about 24 people on the other side during astral trips. So I will literally grab them on the street and say, look, I'm an astral projector from Earth and I want to ask you a few questions about what your life is like here. And they often think of this almost like a paranormal thing to them, because they don't often meet people from this world who are conscious and aware of what's going on and are able to ask questions. Now, I think they study this type of thing in school, but it's not common that they'll meet somebody who is like, "Hey, I'm living dual lives here on Earth, and I'm a researcher, and I want to ask you questions." So they often respond with a lot of curiosity and positivity and are eager to answer questions that I pose to them. And so I've chronicled some of this in my first couple books, but I mostly have these notes down in my journals. I don't usually share all of them, but I'm going to condense a few of these points for this video, and hopefully these ideas will make sense. We don't know, it's not gospel. It's this is a theoretical science, but it's hopefully a good direction to use. Okay, so number one point is that on the astral plane, people who live there do not call it the astral plane. Only we call it the astral plane. We only use the terminology astral, but they do use the terminology called earth plane. So to them, they're on the earth, and the world that they're on is a copy of the world we're in right now. So it's a higher dimensional version of this planet. So to them, they're on Earth, and they have copies of all the cities. Basically, the whole topography of this planet is also theirs. So there's an astral Los Angeles, an astral Jerusalem, astral Hong Kong. I've been to many places like this, but people on the forum over years have reported all these astral versions of cities. Actually, I was mentioning Jerusalem because there was somebody talking about an astral Jerusalem recently on the forums, and how it was a real city just like we have here. Here in Tucson, Arizona, I've been to the astral Tucson. Like, I know that city very well, and it is, Tucson's kind of a funky town in Arizona in real life, but on the astral spectrum, it's a little bit more elaborate. Big silver-spired buildings and things like that, which you don't find here necessarily. So there's definitely changes between these two places, and But to them, the main point is that they think of their world as Earth, and they think of this as the Earth plane. So it's kind of a dirtier, grittier version of their existence. So, we often think of like the worlds beyond, reaching out to higher vistas and beautiful locations. And for them, it's the opposite sometimes. It's like, oh my God, you came from a different realm of existence. I'm so sorry. It must be so miserable coming from the Earth plane of existence. So that's my first point, kind of about the terminology, how they view things. To them, it's not astral, it's just the world that they're in. But to us, we call it astral. Okay, so the next point is all the psychic powers that we think of traditionally in this world, so ESP, telekinesis, psychokinesis, something that is not so common here, bilocation, except maybe certain yogis can do it, but being able to be in multiple places at once. All of these paranormal abilities are actually normal abilities for them on that side, which makes sense. So this world is a much, much murkier, more strict version of that world. So we can just barely do the things that they do, and they don't even think twice about it. So for them, telepathic communication is normal. It's not weird. You can talk to almost anyone from any distance. Teleportation is also pretty normal, but that is a skill. If you can teleport, actually you'll get some accolades. But it's, again, not bizarre if you're able to teleport. So there's also, of course, being able to materialize objects. Again, it's kind of a cool skill, and people may comment on someone who has the ability to do it, but it wouldn't be weird if someone can do that, right? So if somebody can materialize a piñata, I don't know, I'm just making stuff up. If you can materialize a piñata, it's like, wow, it's so cool you can materialize a piñata, but it's not too strange, because that kind of stuff can happen. But it's not the way that it's not the primary rule, which means that there's still, if most things are not materialized. In fact, it's my belief that on the astral spectrum, there's still manufacturing, there's still people building stuff the old-fashioned way, but a lot of that can be cut down or replaced by especially groups of people coming together to conjure something up out of their minds. So basically, transferring thoughts into a version of matter that responds to thoughts. Now, what's uncertain is how long materialized objects stay around. Sometimes they disappear quickly, or they stay put for a long time. But that kind of, what we would think of as a very strange environment where things come and go and objects appear and disappear. Maybe there's a house down the block one day, then the next day it's gone because the owners just made it disappear. That kind of stuff, which would be very strange to us, is perfectly normal to them, and they take it for granted. The third point is that there's a difference in the perception of time, and so this does not mean that time isn't real, but it means that they are not aware so much of scheduling like we do, and are not aware as much of the day-night year cycle. So this is a consistent thing when I've asked people on that side, especially people who remember having had a life on Earth before they transition to that side. They basically say that things operate more in the now. So there's no reason to be like, okay, next week we're going to have this meeting, because they just do the meeting now. One of the reasons for that is that there isn't such a constriction of time and space, especially as people are able to sometimes do things like be in different places at once. So why would you have to schedule something next week if you can actually project your consciousness in one place and another place at the same time? So for them, that's again one of the normal skills that you can develop. And so if you have a meeting, it's very convenient. So just do it now while you're back at home, hanging out with the kids or whatever it may be. So basically, this kind of scheduling business, it kind of goes out the window. Doesn't mean it's completely gone by any means, but it's a lot more flexible than it is here. Also, what's not entirely certain is day and night cycles. And so I've seen day and night cycles, but I've also heard of and seen day and night cycles not happening. So depending, I think, everything really depends on the type of world or realm or city or country or whatever it is that wherever it is that you are, that you, whatever kind of group consensus reality that you're in. Sometimes there's not even like a proper day and night cycle, so people are not paying attention to Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. They're not paying attention to even what year it is. They're just everyone's just kind of living in the moment and operating on that level of consciousness. But it doesn't mean that time doesn't exist. It just means people aren't thinking about time and scheduling and things like that the same way that they do here. But there obviously could be exceptions to this, so there's no reason to paint anything black and white. This is just a general consensus. It's a little more flexible than it is here. The next point is, this kind of goes with the second point about supernatural abilities being normal, and it concerns the idea that here, thoughts, daydreaming, things like that is, the thoughts almost seem far away, right? So imagine a red pot of red flowers, and I'm sure you can see it right now, but what you're seeing in your mind, it's actually very distant, isn't it? So it's like this very subtle thing that's, maybe you could say it's in your head, or we don't know, but when you visualize something, it's like you can feel it, you can kind of see it in your mind's eye, but it's so distant. On that side, when you're seeing things in your mind's eye, or if you decide to do some daydreaming, it's like you can switch right into this higher mode of consciousness where that vase of flowers becomes very lucid, like you can really feel and see it in your mind's eye in ways you cannot do here. So if you're prone to daydreaming, you could be sitting on an astral sofa and then you want to create a world in your mind, in your imagination, unlike here where it's really going to be, again, a distant thing. You could potentially create like something that feels very tangible, kind of like a lucid dream. You can create that lucid dream in your mind while you're just lounging around and thinking about it. But of course, just like here, once you get up and you move around, your thoughts change. You're back into that consensus of objective reality again with everybody else. Now, what this does is creates an effect where people around you sometimes will be daydreaming off into other worlds. It's possible even to join those people in those other worlds, a little bit like the film Inception, I guess. And again, that's a natural ability if you want to do that with somebody. So you could, if you have a spouse, they're like, hey, let's create a fantasy world together. What you do is they visualize and create this in their mind. You just sit next to them, and then you just join them into it, and then two people can merge into that other reality. And but it's a dream world, right? So I mean, it's not like a shared consensus world like you're in now. But if you've had dreams or lucid dreams, you know what that's like. So two people can just kind of drift into a dream together, and that can be a great way to have fun. It's kind of like creating a natural virtual reality experience. I think that's many people's pastime, is doing that. But it does create an effect where you might see a lot of people just daydreaming and not connected to reality. And there was a book called Life in the World Unseen by Monsieur Hugh Benson, and then he recommended people who cross over to that world, who die here, and the people who choose to enter the astral world, which not everybody does, by the way. I think that there's some people who don't go to these worlds, but for those who do, he says keep one foot in the objective reality at all times. Because if you don't do that, you could get lost, carried away by your thoughts. And then you'll be like the equivalent of somebody who doesn't leave their house here, and this is always, maybe always playing video games and watching TV, always in some other world. Well, I mean, that's fun, but that's also something that you could potentially do too much of. And then your friends will begin to miss you, you'll be unproductive, and all of that. So that's a big factor as well. Okay, so the fifth area concerns kind of the multidimensional levels and how that affects day-to-day life. And there was a very interesting report that one of the members of the community was telling me recently. Then I jotted this down because it also rings true to some of my experiences, which is that when you're out, walking around, or when you're, whatever the case may be, going about your business, it's not weird to see somebody like walk through a wall or just like appear out of nowhere, and seemingly like they are not able to pay attention to you, they don't see you, or they're like in their own world basically, or like a phantasm. Somebody just drifts by, like you're in your room on the astral plane watching Astral TV, which, by the way, there is Astral TV, and someone just walks through the wall. And for us, we'd be like, oh my God, it's a phantasm. But for them, pretty normal. Because what happens is that on this higher frequency, there's all these other interpenetrating frequencies, including even people from here, from the earth plane, as well as people from lower planes and even higher planes of existence. And we don't know all the physics behind how this works, but if a frequency just kind of like connects together for a moment, if there's interference, then you might see someone walk by from a different plane of existence, a different level on the spectrum. And they don't see you, but for a moment you can see them. So we experience the same thing in this world in the form of ghosts, but for them it's just a common occurrence. It doesn't really mean anything except it's kind of annoying, right? So it's just something you have to get used to when you live on that side. The final point is that even with all these changes, earthly existence on this like earthly astral level is not that different from here. And that's a really weird thing, because as far as I can tell, there's children, people grow up and they go to school, and there's even politics. There's a lot of stuff that would be difficult for us to imagine happening on the astral level, even though it seems like such a magical, weird, crazy place to us. But at the end of the day, there's astral companies. There's, like I mentioned before, astral television, astral news, and they obviously don't use the word astral. We use that, but to them it's the news companies, governments. All of these types of things seem to exist on that middle earthly level that we talk about, that a lot of us astral travelers go into. And there's even danger, and that sounds really weird, but it's you think you're invincible when you're on that side. But I have many people that I've interviewed and other astral travelers I've spoken to have described the danger of going into a situation that could actually harm your astral body. But it's usually kind of a matter of free will, in the sense that if you go and join a fight, you join a cause, you're basically giving permission to end up in a bad situation where you could actually have your astral body like hurt or destroyed. There's even, from my research, illnesses on that side. So it sounds terrible, and I totally agree that this is horrible, but myself and several travelers that I've been communicating with have noticed people wearing masks on that side, because the C virus is still a problem even on that side. It's like we transferred it from this world into that world, and they're not that happy about it. But it doesn't mean that once that virus shifted into an energetic frequency that's compatible with astral bodies, people's astral bodies started getting infected with it. And the thing is that it's not, I don't think it's causing the damage on that side like it does here. One person told me that it's just like having a cold, but it's really, really annoying. It can really put you out for a while, but people aren't like losing their astral lives because of it, but people don't want to get sick. It's really uncomfortable, and so that's a problem for them. So the same can be said for other types of diseases, other issues. So in general, it's like you don't have that danger that you're going to lose your life if you get hit by a car or if you catch a disease. You're going to be annoyed by it. You may find it be uncomfortable, but it's not going to kill you. But that doesn't mean you can't die on the astral spectrum, because many sources have told me that you can. And in particular, it relates to what I mentioned before, which is if you decide, I'm going to go fight this war, and I'm going to go take up this cause. And it's almost like you're entering, in that case, like kind of like a subliminal group consensus reality at that point. It's like, well, I'm entering into a situation where the stakes are life or death, and as a result of choosing to do that, you could end up actually having your astral body obliterated. And I've talked about that before on this channel if you go through the archives. It's not something you want to have happen to you, because it's not easy to fix. And some people even have to incarnate back on Earth again to be able to get their astral body back. So almost creates like a reincarnation cycle. So that is obviously not something you want to have happen to you. And the advice for that, and I'm actually paraphrasing a little bit of something that I believe it was Paramahansa Yogananda's teacher in, I don't think it was I don't think it was Autobiography of a Yogi. I just don't remember where it was. I mentioned this a while back on the channel. But paraphrasing a little bit, which is that don't join wars on the astral plane. Don't go join a cause that could jeopardize your astral body. So your astral body is kind of this gift. I mean, it's like on Earth, you are this flower blooming, you know, or I should say a chrysalis is a better example. And then, you know, the astral body finally breaks free from its shell, and you have this beautiful gift, which is the astral body. It allows you to be able to navigate the multiverse, navigate other planes of existence, and navigate this astral world. You don't want to throw that gift away, so you don't want to go put it in jeopardy, because it's kind of up to you. You don't have to do something dangerous. And unfortunately, people are not aware of these rules or how it all works. People cross over and they don't get these things, and as a result, they may go join a cause, they may go join a conflict, and they don't realize what they're doing, what they're signing up for. So if you're watching this channel, now you're educated not to do something foolish like that. The last point really is just about how that side, with all all the stuff I just described, no matter how kind of crazy it sounds, for them that's the normal world. So this world is the weird perversion of their world. And so people on that side, I think the most telling thing is when I talk to somebody and they said that it must be a nightmare to come from this world. And some people say that they were born on that side, so I don't fully understand how that works. Maybe it's the same as here. But people can have, living on the earth plane is just another element of the multidimensional existences that we all have, right? So some people have had multidimensional existences in places beyond their imaginations, and then some people had multidimensional existences here on Earth. And for most people, it just sounds like a nightmare, because it kind of is. Actually, I think one more thing I'll mention is that there's generally a higher level of technology on that side. So people were astral traveling in the 90s, and there was one gentleman I was talking to, I think on the comments on this channel, talking about using smartphones on the astral plane in the early 90s when he was astral traveling in the 90s. And those smartphones, of course, wouldn't come around for another 15 or 20 years, but they were appearing there first. I've also seen, held, and experienced technology which I'm sure is 20, 30, 40, 100 years more advanced than we have here. So it is kind of like technology percolates down to this world. And on the astral Earth level, it wouldn't be weird at all for a spaceship to go by, for extraterrestrials to visit, for UFOs to be in the sky. I think many of the UFOs and things like that that we experience on this side are actually coming from the astral spectrum. They're just beaming into this world. And again, be perfectly normal if you go to a city in a UFO lands. Like, that is normal. That's not an issue on the astral spectrum like it would be here. That's it for now. Hey, if you like this kind of stuff, then you can work with me personally, do coaching. I help teach about astral projection or anything else I talk about on this channel. And you can do that by contacting me at the contact information down below. Be sure to join our brand new MeWe community. So MeWe is kind of a Facebook replacement, and that group is growing, and I have a link down below to sign up for the MeWe group called Life After Death and Metaphysics Discussion. There's also the Reddit group, the Facebook group, which is going strong, and I guess that's it. So thank you for watching this video. Oh yeah, I have books like Understanding Life After Death. You can check that out too. So anyway, thank you for watching this video. And hopefully this was informative to you, but let me know what parts of this correlate with your experiences and post in the comments down below. Alright, see you guys on the next video.